Welcome to the Green Building Show, where we investigate green design and building trends throughout Australia.
In this final episode in our DIY series, I'll be speaking with Horst Lueckl, the director of Gardner Homes, North Sydney, and he's going to explain to us all the ins and outs of creating your own DIY deck. And in Australian style, I'll be speaking with architect Karen Ognebeen, who's created an absolutely incredible lightweight addition to a traditional workers' cottage. I'm here today with Horst Lueckl. He's the director of Gardner Homes, Sydney North. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
So Horst, today we're talking about the DIY deck and how someone can go about creating a deck in their own home. I guess what's the main challenges when people want to start a project like this?
Okay, so the first thing is to set out the site. So you obviously have to know the dimensions, or the dimensions your deck should be. So you have to set it out accordingly. So measure it out, square it off. Then obviously you have to start with the foundation work. So foundation work's usually digging a trench or digging holes, pouring concrete in order to have something as a foundation. Then if it's a timber post or timber structure, you obviously have to put some brackets onto the concrete and then affix your posts to that. Then on top of those posts, obviously there will be timber bearers attached to it, bolted through it. They all have to be on the same level and plumb. And then diagonally in the opposite direction, you will have then the joist structure sitting on top. That gives you then the platform, the building platform for your deck. If you want to use a timber deck or use lightweight products for a tiled solution, that's obviously there's the same sub-floor structure is. It's possible to use both products for it. So,
okay, so whether it's a lightweight material deck or a traditional wooden deck,
yeah, the
initial structure is the same.
It's basically the same system, the same. There's no difference to it. So obviously with timber decks, usually you lay them down. You have gaps. You have to have 3 or 5 millimeter gaps in between the boards. So because it is a natural product, with it will move, like it will shrink and expand with rain and sunshine, obviously, and you either nail it or screw it down. If you go down this having a tiled deck, a solid deck, then you use some fibre cement products that you can glue and screw down onto that joist structure.
And how popular is that style of deck?
It is more and more now, because I mean, timber decks are there's a fair bit of maintenance to do, and the products usually timber rots and whatever, so you have to change it over a period of 8 to 10 years, you know. Plus you have to paint it all the time, like every so often, every 18 months or so. You should, if it's an oiled timber deck, you should keep oiling it, otherwise the product eventually will just start to rot. And
talking about the lightweight material deck with the tiles, can you give us a rundown about how you go about creating that? Give us a bit of a step-by-step.
Yeah, okay. So basically, firstly, the subfloor structure is the same as we talked about before, like as you've got bearers and joists. Then you get the sheeting. It's a fibre cement product. There's a few different products on the market. There's a tongue and groove option, which is James Hardie's product, which we use quite often on our jobs. It's fairly easy to put down, so you don't really need to be a tradesman to do that kind of stuff. It's quite easy to do. They are quite heavy, so usually it is a 2-man job. You can't just, these sheets are quite heavy, so you have to handle them with 2 people. But you just lay them down. You use obviously the recommended glues and sealants, which is very important. And so you could just put a bead of glue on all the top of the joists, and then you lay your sheet down flat, and then you either screw it or nail it into the joists. And then the next sheet that comes along, you just use the tongue and groove. There's a tongue and a groove, and you stick it together and keep going like that.
And then what do? You put tiles on top? Or
Usually then what we do is, and what's recommended to do is you use a sealant in the joints, and you just seal all those joints so it's waterproof. What we also do is on top of that, we actually put a waterproofing membrane on, which is a paintable plastic sort of membrane, water-based membrane, which you can roll on. You do about two or three coats of it. Obviously there's drying times in between, so you have to do it every...
And so what's the advantage of that? I mean, obviously it makes it more water resistant. Does
that is then absolutely
maintenance costs and all things like that?
Absolutely, and also there's absolutely no way that any moisture will travel through the sheeting onto the timber subfloor structure, and then will sort of eliminate the dry rot or the rotting of the timber below, you know. So that's a very good solution. And then obviously you can either glue fix your tiles directly onto it, or if you want to create a fall so the water will run off the deck, because the deck is built level, so you can put a sand cement, what we call sand cement screed, which is like a substrate of about 20 to 30 mil of sand cement mix. And then you level this off, and then you glue fix your tiles on top of that, and that's the best solution.
The lightweight solution, would that be more DIY friendly in terms of someone who doesn't have a trade under their belt? Timber
decks obviously will be the quicker solution, but the better solution, and obviously will be the tile deck, which it's maintenance free for 15, 20 years, you know, and it should last forever. Where with timber decks, you've got an ongoing maintenance problem, and or like you have to replace some of the boards eventually. So
when you're going about materials, how do you go about choosing the right materials for the project?
It's more or less knowledge, but if you do it yourself, obviously you can always go and go to the local timber yard and tell them what you're wanting to do, and they should be able to help you. But obviously timbers, for external stuff, we use treated timbers. The most commonly used is treated pine,
This is for the framing?
This is for the subfloor framing, yes.
Okay, and what about the lightweight materials which goes at the top? How do you go about choosing that?
Okay, there's like I said, there's a couple of options out there. There's a product that's been around for a long while. It's called compressed Fibro. It's obviously it's not fibrous. I mean, it's a fiber cement sheet, but and it's been around for a long time. But it's very, very heavy, and it comes in big sheets, and it's sort of something that pretty hard to use. Okay, where the newer products that we use now, the James Hardie products, that Secura is for external balconies and stuff. It's just such a great material. It's a lot lighter. The increments, the sizes are slightly smaller, so it's easier to handle, and it's user friendly because you can actually nail it as well. And where compressed fibre had to be pre-drilled and then screwed into the subframe, you know. So it's a much easier, slightly lighter product, and we found a lot easier to use. Yeah.
Horst Lueckl, thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
So it's almost Christmas, Vic. What's hot?
Yeah, a great article on SMH this week claims to have solved the issue forever. They are saying that it's definitely better to have a natural Christmas tree rather than a plastic one. In fact, they've come up with they're just reporting some research from Canada, which says it would take you 20 years of using your plastic tree to be as eco-friendly as getting a real tree every year. Over in America, a lobby group for the plastic tree industry said it would actually take 10 years but we're still talking about 10 years of using your plastic tree before it's as eco-friendly as having a real one, and that's because when real trees grow, they store carbon dioxide, they're good for native animals, etc. Whereas of course when plastic trees are produced, they're creating all kinds of nasty things for the environment when in their production. Interestingly, what the findings have said is that the biggest eco-friendly problem with real Christmas trees is when consumers go get them and pick them up, and also what's done with them afterwards. So if you can give your Christmas tree back to the shop that will then recycle it, or even possibly grow your own in your garden and just bring it in every year, there are a few kind of options like that. But yeah, that's it. Real Christmas trees are better.
I'm here today with Karen Ogdenbein. She's the Associate Architect at Brisbane-based architectural firm Arkfield, and we're talking about the Hawthorne House. Thanks for being with us today, Karen.
No worries, Carlos. Thanks for inviting me.
Great. And judging from the photos here, it looks like a fantastic, and very innovative, lightweight design. Can you please tell us, how the project came about? What was the brief from the client, and what were the main challenges with the project?
Yeah, sure. So the brief from the client was to retain the original Queenslander cottage in as much of its original condition as possible. So the new extension at the back was to be very contemporary, but at the same time not visible from the street. In terms of sort of how it can be complementary but different to the cottage, we decided to use a lightweight frame, so timber and steel frame with Scion Axon, James Hardie's fibre cement cladding on the outside, and also timber battens. So this is it's respectful in a manner that the original cottage had a lot of VJ on the inside, and the linearity of this was replicated in the new extension outside.
Okay, great. So, it started its life as a modest worker's cottage.
Yes, that's right. So, 3-bedroom, little living room, kitchen, bathroom, and a tiny deck that was added on post-war.
And so, I guess, what was the key to really modernising the home?
Well, we didn't want to actually lift the home up, but instead just basically attach a pod on the back. And to do that well, what we did was actually demolish the deck at the back, and then we cut out a section of the floor inside the original cottage and a section of the roof, which let us just basically create this 1.5 height space that interlocked between the old cottage and the new extension.
Fantastic. And what was the decision process behind going with lightweight materials for the extension?
Partly to be respectful to the old cottage, but partly just to make it fairly quick and easy to build. Mm-hmm. So being with the new extensions slab on ground on the first floor, but upstairs it's all, there's quite a lot of voids and verandas and things, so it was, good to just keep it as light as possible.
Fantastic. And what about the sustainability credentials of the home? Is there any sustainable aspects to the home?
Yeah, it's very heavily insulated. The new extension is light colours, so a zinc aluminum roof and white walls to just reflect the heat as much as possible. The timber battens on the outside provide a lot of shading to the internal spaces. And there's quite deep overhangs in terms of the pool kind of slides into the new extension underneath the master bedroom, which then shades the living room and the kitchen.
And how about the reaction from the client when they saw the final product?
Yeah, they were very, very happy. They were heavily involved through the design process and were very responsive to the ideas that we were putting forward, which was good, and they love it. They love living there.
All right, Karen, thank you very much for your time.
Oh, you're welcome, Carlos.
This week, we have a question from Jane, and she's just begun constructing her new home in Newcastle. And she wants to know if James Hardie has a product available so she can see what the cladding is going to look like when the home is actually finished. Well, Jane, the short answer is yes. James Hardie has a tool available called Axel, which enables you to do a 3D model and see what the cladding will look like with just about any James Hardie product. The downside though, Jane, is that it's actually quite a complex software, which means it's actually designed for draftspeople, architects and building designers, meaning that unless you're extremely computer savvy, you may have difficulty navigating your way through the software. So what I recommend, Jane, is to get in touch with an architect who can help you come up with a 3D model and then put all the relevant data into the Axel tool and come up with a great solution for you. Good luck, Jane.